Pull that trigger, and I will send your dead corpse back to your parents and tell them how you cheated on me with my cousin. Park Baite's voice cut through the warehouse like a blade. Lee Yunjin froze, her hand trembling on the gun aimed at Tachukwa's head. The pregnant Nigerian woman, tied to a chair with blood trickling from her temple, squeezed her eyes shut. This was it. The end. But then came the sound of heavy boots. Multiple footsteps. The click of weapons being drawn. Yunjin's head snapped toward the entrance. Her husband stood there, flanked by 6 armed men, his face carved from stone. His eyes, usually so controlled, now burned with something she'd never seen before. Pure rage. Pure betrayal. And worst of all, knowledge. He knew. He'd known all along of her infidelity. Baite, she whispered, lowering the gun slightly. This isn't what you think. Isn't it?
Isn't it?
He stepped forward, each movement deliberate. Dangerous. You kidnapped the woman carrying my child. You threatened to
kill her. You think I don't know what this is?
Tachukwa's breath hitched. He said it. Out loud. My child. The word she'd been too terrified to even think properly suddenly hung in the air like a confession. Like a promise. Like everything she'd never dared to hope for. Your child. Yunjin's laugh came out strangled. With her? With this maid. The disgust in her voice was palpable, but underneath it, something else festered. Fear. Desperation. The realization that everything she built was crumbling. Before we continue, let me ask you a question. Where are you watching us from? Drop your country and the time in the comments. And if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you don't want to miss how this ends. Like this video if you're already hooked. Now back to the story because things are about to get explosive. Baite moved closer, and his men fanned out, surrounding Yunjin's 2 guards who'd helped with the kidnapping. Step away from her. Now. Or what? Yunjin's voice cracked. You'll kill me? Your wife. You ceased being my wife the moment you let my cousin into our bed. The silence that followed was deafening. Tachukwa's eyes flew open. She'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed, hearing the pain beneath his cold words, made her chest tighten. He'd known. All this time he carried that knowledge that hurt and said nothing. Yunjin's face went white, then red. You knew. Did you think I was stupid? Baite's voice dropped to something even more terrifying than anger. Disappointment. I had you followed to Miami. I watched you walk into that hotel with Jae-ho. I saw everything. Then why didn't you say anything? Yunjin screamed, and for a moment, she looked almost childlike in her confusion. Why did you pretend? Because I wanted to see how far you'd go. He gestured to Tachukwa. And now I know. You'd kill an innocent woman. Murder my child. All to protect your precious position. Tears streamed down Yunjin's face now. She doesn't deserve you. Look at her. She's nothing. A maid. A foreigner. She has no right to bear your heir. And you did. Baite's words were surgical. Precise. Lethal. When you were busy sleeping with my cousin. When you were plotting to take my land. Tell me, wife, what right did you have? Yunjin staggered back. The gun wavered. The land? You think I care about the land? Don't you? He pulled out his phone, tapped the screen, and a voice filled the warehouse. Her voice. From days ago, talking to Jae-ho. Once I get my share of the land, we'll have everything. We can finally be together properly. Jae-ho's response crackled through. And what about your husband? What about him? Once I give him an heir, he'll be satisfied. He'll never suspect the child isn't his. The recording stopped. Yunjin looked like she might vomit. That's out of context. Is it? Baite pocketed the phone. Or is it exactly what it sounds like? You and Jae-ho planning to use me. To steal from me. To raise his child as mine. He told me you were impotent. The words burst out of Yunjin like a dam breaking. He said you couldn't have children. That you were too ashamed to tell me. That the only way I could give you an heir was if he. She trailed off, seeing the look on Baite's face. Impotent. He repeated the word slowly, then laughed. A cold, bitter sound. And you believed him. Why wouldn't I? Yunjin was sobbing now. We've been trying for 3 years. 3 years Baite and nothing. I thought it was you. Did you ever think to check yourself? He pointed at Chukwu. Because there's your answer. I can have children. Which means the problem was never me. The implication hung in the air. Yunjin's knees buckled. One of her guards caught her, but she pushed him away. No, that's not. I can't be. Infertile. Baite supplied. Maybe you are. Maybe you aren't. But you never checked. You just believed Jaeho's lies because it was easier than facing the truth. What truth? Her voice was barely a whisper now. That he was using you. That he never loved you. That all he wanted was the land I promised you. Baite turned to his men. Cut her loose. 2 guards moved forward and began untying Chukwu. She gasped as the ropes fell away, her wrists raw and bleeding. Baite was there immediately, catching her as she nearly collapsed. His arm went around her waist, steady and sure, and she looked up at him with wide, disbelieving eyes. I've got you, he murmured, so quietly only she could hear. You're safe now. Chukwu wanted to speak, to thank him, to ask him why, but her throat was too tight. Instead, she just leaned into him, feeling his warmth, his solidity, and let herself believe, just for a moment, that maybe she really was safe. Yunjin watched this exchange, and something in her broke completely. You love her. It wasn't a question. Baite didn't answer. He didn't need to. The way he held Chukwu, protective and gentle, said everything. How long? Yunjin demanded. How long have you loved her? Does it matter? Yes. She screamed it. Yes, it matters. I'm your wife. I've been your wife for 5 years. And you've been sleeping with my cousin for how long? The question silenced her. Don't pretend you have the moral high ground here, Yunjin. You gave that up the moment you betrayed me. I did it for us. Yunjin's voice rose to a desperate pitch. Everything I did was for us. For our family. For an heir. No. Baite's voice was final. Absolute. You did it for yourself. For your position. For your comfort. Don't dress it up as love. He guided Chukwu toward the exit, keeping himself between her and Yunjin. His men formed a protective barrier around them. But before they reached the door, Yunjin's voice rang out one last time. What about me? What happens to me now? Baite stopped but didn't turn around. Go home. Sign the divorce papers on my desk. Give them to Attorney Kim. From this moment, you are no longer my wife. And if I refuse? Now he did turn, and the look he gave her could have frozen fire. Then I released the recordings. All of them. Your affair with Jaeho. Your plots against me. Your attempt to murder Chukwu. I have security footage from this warehouse. I have witness statements. I can bury you, Yunjin, or you can leave with some dignity intact. Your choice. She crumbled to the floor, her expensive dress pooling around her like a shroud. I loved you, she whispered. Once I really did love you. Maybe you did. His voice softened just slightly. But love isn't enough when there's no trust. No loyalty. No honesty. He paused. Goodbye, Yunjin. They left her there, broken and sobbing on the concrete floor. Outside, the night air hit Chukwu like a slap, and she gasped, her legs finally giving out. Baite caught her, lifting her into his arms without hesitation. I can walk, she protested weakly. You're bleeding. You're pregnant. You're in shock. He carried her toward his car. You're not walking anywhere. She didn't have the strength to argue. Instead, she let her head rest against his chest, hearing his heartbeat steady and strong. Real. This was real. She wasn't dead. Her baby wasn't dead. They were safe. The car ride was silent. Baite held her in the back seat while one of his men drove. His hand rested on her stomach, protective, possessive almost. She should have found it presumptuous. Instead, it made her feel angered, like she wasn't floating away into the nightmare anymore. Why didn't you tell me? His voice broke the silence. She knew what he meant. I was going to leave. I packed my bags. I was going to disappear before anyone found out. Why? Because I destroyed your marriage. Her voice cracked. Because I'm just a maid. Because your wife has been nothing but kind to me. And I repaid her by sleeping with her husband. Because this baby shouldn't exist. Don't say that. His hand tightened on her stomach. Don't ever say that. But it's true. I'm nobody. I'm nothing. I came here from Nigeria with nothing. I send money home to my family because we have nothing. What right do I have to carry your child? What right do I have to ruin your life? You didn't ruin my life, Tochukwu. He said her full name with such care, such precision, that fresh tears sprang to her eyes. My wife did that all by herself. And you're not nothing. You're the woman who showed me kindness when I was drowning, who looked at me like I was human, not just a name or a position, who made me feel something again. She looked up at him, searching his face. That night, you really thought I was her. For about 30 seconds. His jaw tightened. Then I knew it was you, and I should have stopped, should have pulled away. But I didn't want to. He met her eyes. I wanted you, not my wife. You. The confession hung between them, raw and honest. Tochukwu didn't know what to say. What could she say? That she'd wanted him too? That every moment since had been torture, pretending nothing happened while her heart screamed his name? That she'd fallen in love with a man she could never have? Except maybe she could. Maybe impossibly she could. What happens now? She whispered. Now. He brushed a strand of hair from her face. Now I take care of you, get you medical attention, make sure you and the baby are healthy, and then we figure out the rest. Your wife is no longer my concern. I gave her a choice. Sign the papers or face the consequences. Either way, she's out of my life. His eyes held hers. If she's even still in it to begin with. There was something in his tone that made her stomach drop. What do you mean? I mean, Yunjin is desperate, cornered, and desperate people do unpredictable things. He pulled out his phone, typed something, then showed her the screen. It was a message to his head of security. Have men watching Li Yunjin. If she attempts to leave the country or contact Park Jae-ho, detain her immediately. You think she'll run? I think she'll try to salvage what she can. And that means either running or... He trailed off. Or what? Or going to Jae-ho for help. His expression darkened. Which would be a mistake. Tochukwu remembered the recordings. The callous way Jae-ho had talked about using Yunjin. About the land. About everything. He doesn't love her. No, he never did. But she doesn't know that yet. Or maybe she does and just doesn't want to believe it. He sighed. Either way, it's not my problem anymore. My only concern is you. The car pulled up to a private hospital. Not a public one. Somewhere discreet. Baite carried her inside, and within minutes, she was in a pristine room with a doctor examining her. The cuts on her wrists were cleaned and bandaged. An ultrasound was performed. And through it all, Baite stayed. Held her hand, watched the screen when the doctor showed them the tiny flickering heartbeat. Twins, the doctor announced with a smile. 2 healthy heartbeats. Congratulations. Tochukwu's breath caught. Twins. 2 babies. She looked at Baite and saw something shift in his expression. Wonder, joy, fear. All of it crashing together in a way that made him look younger, more vulnerable. Twins. He repeated, almost reverent. His hand found hers again, squeezing tight. We're having twins. He said we. Like this was theirs. Together. Like she wasn't just the maid who'd accidentally gotten pregnant. Like she was something more. Someone who mattered. The doctor left them alone, and for a long moment they just sat there. Hands clasped, staring at the ultrasound image. 2 tiny shapes. 2 lives. 2 futures. I'm scared, Tochukwu admitted. So am I. She blinked at him, surprised by the honesty. You are. Terrified. He brought her hand to his lips, kissing her knuckles softly. I've built an empire. Faced down rivals who wanted me dead. Survived attempts on my life. But this? Being a father? Being with you? I have no idea what I'm doing. That makes 2 of us. They shared a small, fragile smile. The first real one since this nightmare began. But it didn't last. Because Baite's phone rang, and the name on the screen made his expression go cold. Jae-ho. He answered, putting it on speaker. What do you want? Cousin. Jae-ho's voice was smooth. Too smooth. I heard you had an interesting evening. Warehouse. Kidnapping. Very dramatic. Get to the point. The point is, I have something you want. Or rather, someone. There was a pause, then a female voice. Panicked. Crying. Baite, please help me. It was Yeonjin. Taechukwa's blood ran cold. Baite's grip on her hand tightened, but his face remained impassive. What did you do, Jae-ho? Me? I didn't do anything. Your wife came to me. Told me about your little ultimatum. The divorce papers. The threats. She was quite upset. Another pause. So I offered her a solution. What kind of solution? The kind where she signs over her rights to your land. All of it. In exchange, I help her disappear. Start a new life somewhere you'll never find her. His laugh was cruel. She agreed, of course. Desperate women always do. You're bluffing. Baite's voice was ice. Yeonjin doesn't have rights to any land. I never signed it over to her. Ah, but you promised, didn't you? Jae-ho's tone turned mocking. And promises mean something in our world. Or they used to. Before you decided to throw away 5 years of marriage for a pregnant maid. Taechukwu flinched at the venom in his words, but Baite's hand steadied her. His eyes never left the phone. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Somewhere your men won't find us. Not in time, anyway. There was movement in the background. Muffled sounds. Then Jae-ho spoke again, quieter now. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to transfer the land deed to an account I specify. You're going to do it within the next 2 hours. And if you don't, well, your wife has been very careless lately. Depression. Stress. It would be such a tragedy if she did something irreversible. If you hurt her. You'll what? Kill me? Please, cousin. We both know you won't. Because despite everything she's done, you still have a soft spot for her. You always did. Jae-ho's voice turned silky. 2 hours. I'll send the account details. Oh, and come alone. Bring your men and she dies. Bring the police and she dies. Understand. The line went dead. Baite sat motionless for 3 full seconds. Then he stood, already dialing another number. Get me everything on Jae-ho's recent locations. Properties. Vehicles. Associates. Everything. I want it in 10 minutes. He hung up and turned to Taechukwu. Her face was pale, eyes wide. You're going after her. I have to. Even after everything she did. After she tried to kill me. Her voice rose. She would have pulled that trigger, Baite. She would have murdered me and our babies without a second thought. I know. He crouched in front of her, taking both her hands. But if I let her die, I'm no better than Jae-ho. And I won't give him that power over me. Over us. This is insane. It's a trap. You know it's a trap. Of course it is. His smile was grim. But Jae-ho made one critical mistake. What? He thinks I still care about Yeonjin. He thinks I'll sacrifice everything to save her. Baite stood, checking his weapon. He's wrong. I'm not going there to save my wife. I'm going there to end this. Once and for all. Taechukwu grabbed his arm. Then let me come with you. Absolutely not. You're staying here where it's safe. I've already assigned guards to your door. No one gets in. No one gets out. I can't just sit here while you walk into a trap. Yes, you can. Because our children need you alive. He cupped her face gently. I will come back. Promise. But I need to know you're safe. Please. She wanted to argue. Wanted to scream that she couldn't lose him. Not now. Not when she just found him. But the look in his eyes stopped her. This was who he was. A man who finished what he started. A man who protected what was his. Even if it meant walking into hell. Come back to me, she whispered. Always. He kissed her forehead, soft and lingering. Then he was gone. The next 2 hours were the longest of Tachukwa's life. She paced, prayed, stared at her phone, willing it to ring. The guards outside her door were silent, professional, and completely unhelpful. They knew nothing. Or if they did, they weren't saying. Finally, at hour 3, her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Just an address and 3 words. Come alone. Rooftop. Now. Her heart stopped. This wasn't Baite's number, which meant either Jae-ho had his phone, or something had gone terribly wrong. She looked at the door, at the guards, at the hospital room that suddenly felt like a cage. She couldn't just sit here. Not anymore. Moving quickly, she grabbed a coat and slipped it on, hiding the hospital gown underneath. Then she walked to the door and knocked. One of the guards opened it immediately. I need some air, she said, keeping her voice steady. Just a walk around the floor. I'm going crazy in here. The guard hesitated. Mr. Park said you're not to leave this room. I'm pregnant with twins tied to a chair and nearly murdered tonight. I think I deserve a 5-minute walk. She met his eyes. Please. I'm not asking to leave the building. Just the room. He exchanged a glance with his partner, then nodded. 5 minutes. We'll escort you. Perfect. That's what she needed. She walked slowly, deliberately, letting them follow. Past the nurses' station. Past the elevator banks. And then when they passed the women's restroom, she ducked inside. Ma'am, wait. One guard started forward, but the door was already closing. Inside, Tachukwa moved fast. There was a window, small but accessible. She'd seen it earlier when the nurse brought her in. It led to a fire escape. Dangerous? Yes. Stupid? Absolutely. But if Baite was in trouble, if he needed help, she couldn't just hide while he died. The window opened with a screech. Cold air rushed in. She climbed through, her body protesting every movement, and found herself on a metal platform 3 stories up. Below, the city sprawled in lights and shadows. Above, the rooftop beckoned. She started climbing. The address from the text was only 2 blocks away. An abandoned hotel, slated for demolition. She could see it from here, dark and looming against the night sky. And on the rooftop, barely visible figures moved. It took her 15 agonizing minutes to climb down the fire escape, cross the street, and slip into the hotel. The lobby was gutted, graffiti covering the walls. Debris everywhere. But the service elevator still worked, groaning as it carried her up to the top floor. The rooftop access was unlocked. She pushed through and stopped, her breath catching. There they were. Baite on one side, hands raised but empty. Jae-ho on the other, gun pressed to Yeonjin's temple. The woman was crying, makeup streaked, dress torn. Between them, nothing but 30 feet of concrete and broken dreams. You're late, Jae-ho called out. I was starting to think you didn't care anymore. Let her go. Baite's voice was steady. Calm. This is between us. She's not part of it. Isn't she? Jae-ho laughed. She's the reason I started all this. The key to getting what I wanted. And now, she's the reason you're going to give it to me. I'm not giving you anything. Then she dies. He cocked the gun. Yeonjin screamed. Wait. Baite took a step forward. Wait. Just tell me why. Why go through all of this? The affair. The lies about me being impotent. The manipulation. Why not just ask for the land? Because you would have said no. Jae-ho's smile was bitter. You always said no. To me. To my ideas. To my plans. I was never good enough for the great Park Baite, was I? Always second best. Always the cousin who couldn't measure up. That's not true. Isn't it? You got the empire. The respect. The power. And what did I get? Scraps. Leftovers. So I decided to take what should have been mine all along. He gestured with a gun. Starting with her. Your precious wife. It was so easy, you know. She was desperate for a child. Desperate to please you. All I had to do was lie, and she believed me. Because she wanted to believe. Because she was weak. Yeonjin sobbed harder, and for the first time, Tachukwa felt something other than anger toward her. Pity. This woman had been used. Manipulated. Turned into a weapon against her own husband. Yes, she'd made terrible choices, but Jae-ho had orchestrated it all. So what now? Baite asked. You kill her? You kill me? Then what? You think you'll just walk away with the land? My men will hunt you down. Your men. Jae-ho spat the words. Always your men. Your power. Your control. But not for long. Because once you're dead, once she's dead, there's no one left to challenge my claim. I'm family. I inherit. That's how it works. You really think it's that simple? I know it is. Then you're stupider than I thought. Baite's voice turned cold. Hard. Because I changed my will 3 days ago. Everything goes to my children. Both of them. And if anything happens to me, it's held in trust until they're 18. You get nothing, Jae-ho. Not one piece of land. Not $1. Nothing. The color drained from Jae-ho's face. You're lying. Am I? Check with Attorney Kim. He filed the paperwork yesterday. Baite smiled, sharp and dangerous. You lost the moment you tried to play me. You just didn't know it yet. For a heartbeat, everything was still. Silent. And then Jae-ho moved, swinging the gun from Yeonjin toward Baite. Chukwu saw it happening in slow motion. Saw his finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Baite's eyes widen. She didn't think. Just acted. Screamed his name and ran forward, putting herself between them. The gunshot cracked through the air. Pain exploded in her shoulder. She fell. Everything after that was chaos. Baite's roar of rage. More gunshots. Yeonjin screaming. Footsteps pounding. And through it all, Chukwu lay on the cold concrete, staring up at the stars, wondering if this was how it ended. Then Baite's face appeared above hers. Desperate. Terrified. Beautiful. Stay with me. Chukwu, stay with me. The babies, she whispered. They're fine. You're fine. Help is coming. Just stay awake. Please. Please stay awake. She tried. She really did. But the darkness was so warm. So inviting. Her eyes drifted closed. When they opened again, she was in a hospital room. White walls. Beeping monitors. And Baite asleep in the chair beside her bed. His hand wrapped around hers. She squeezed gently. His eyes flew open. You're awake. How long? 2 days. His voice was rough. Raw. 2 days of hell wondering if you'd wake up. If the babies were okay. If I'd lost you. The babies. Healthy. Both of them. The bullet missed anything vital. You were incredibly lucky. He stood, leaning over her. And incredibly stupid. What were you thinking? Jumping in front of a bullet. I was thinking I couldn't lose you. Tears welled in her eyes. I couldn't just sit there and let you die. So you almost died instead? He pressed his forehead to hers. Don't ever do that again. Do you understand? Never. What happened? After the shot. His jaw tightened. Jae-ho is dead. My men arrived 30 seconds after he pulled the trigger. They didn't hesitate. And Yeonjin. He paused. She's alive. In custody. The police have her. She'll face charges for kidnapping. Attempted murder. Everything. Will she go to prison? Most likely. For a long time. He straightened, brushing hair from her face. But that's not your concern. Your only job is to heal. To rest. To let me take care of you. 3 months passed. The divorce was finalized. Yeonjin was sentenced to life imprisonment, where she eventually took a fertility test and discovered the truth. She wrote letters. Apologizing. Wishing them well. Chukwu read them once and then put them away. Some wounds needed time. The wedding was small. Private. Just close friends and Baite's most trusted men. Chukwu wore a simple white dress that accommodated her growing belly. Baite wore a suit and a smile that made her heart flutter. When the twins were born, one had her rich dark skin. The other had his lighter Korean tone. Both were perfect. Both were loved beyond measure. And as Chukwu held them, watching Baite cradle one while she held the other, she finally understood. Sometimes the worst moments lead to the best futures. Sometimes love grows from pain. And sometimes the person you least expect becomes the one you can't live without. She'd come to Korea with nothing. A maid looking for a better life. and she'd found everything. A family, a home, a love that defied every rule and expectation. The moral was simple, really. Never let anyone make you feel small. Never believe that where you start determines where you end. And never, ever underestimate the power of choosing kindness, even when the world chooses cruelty. Because in the end, it's not about the mistakes we make. It's about what we do after. How we grow. How we love. How we forgive, not because the other person deserves it, but because we deserve peace. Tchukwu looked at her husband, at her children, at the life they'd built from ashes and betrayal, and smiled. This was her happy ending. Hard one. Complicated. Imperfect. But hers. And that made it beautiful. If this story touched you, hit that like button. Subscribe for more stories that will keep you on the edge of your seat. And tell me in the comments, what would you have done in Tchukwu's place? Would you have jumped in front of that bullet? Drop your thoughts below. Until next time, remember that your story isn't over. The best chapters might still be unwritten.